I'm definitely going to read these books. Probably. Well, maybe. Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video, I am doing a new video type, which is a maybe read video, because I did stop doing my TBR videos and started just doing weekly updates on whatever I ended up reading, and that's been really fun to do, and I still entirely plan to continue that and keep going for a while. But I started gathering a collection of books to choose from. And what I used to use is my TBR shelf, and then I use this like TBR and book haul shelf. I've been trying to buy less books while I try to get through more books that I have. And so I decided I'll put any of the books that I know I specifically have thought about wanting to get to there, and hope that that helps. So I'm going to go through these. I won't talk a ton about each one because there's way too many here. But I'm going to go through and just talk about them. First, I do have a small stack that are ones I definitely will be reading at some point soon. I don't know exactly when. But the first being Fool's Quest, which I was still supposed to read last month in May for a buddy read. And then Assassin's Fate, which is the last two books in the Realm of the Elderlings, books 2 and 3 in the Fits of the Fool trilogy. I will definitely be reading these. Honestly, I'll probably end up doing them back to back at this point, since I didn't end up getting to Fool's Quest in May. So it shows even with my buddy reads, I've been kind of just reading other things. I had a lot of other things, and I wanted to save Fool's Quest because I knew I was going to enjoy it. I didn't want to read that and then try out a bunch of things because I was trying a lot of things. And I didn't want anything I read right after a hot book to just not seem as good. So I strategically waited, and then the month got away from me. So those will definitely be happening. I then have my BookTube spin picks, which were for, I guess, Q2. So technically, I think I have until July to read these. So aren't necessarily going to be immediately. The first one being The Dragon Waiting by John M. Ford. This one I was hoping to get to because I know Liam's Lyceum was doing a read of this in May. But I didn't end up getting this one as well. But that's one of my picks, and so one I'll be getting to. And then also Longreave by Daniel Barnett was my other BookTube spin pick, so I'm still planning on getting to this. Now, though, I don't have as high hopes because somebody who recently read this told me there's a bunch of sexual content, which I'm not a huge fan of in books, so we'll see how that one goes for me, despite me loving Nightmare Land. And then the last two... well, the first one that I will for sure be getting, the last physical book that I was sent by an author, which is Wildcat, book 1 of the Caledon Saga by J.P. Harker. When I got all of these, I had a bunch, all of a sudden, people sending me books, both publisher and authors. And so when they were all sent to me, I said, late May, early June is when I'll be looking to get to those, and so I'm still kind of on that timeline. This is the last one that I physically received, so I've gotten through the other physical ones I got now, and so that's still on the list to give a shot soon. And then the other thing I tentatively signed up for May that I did not end up reading is Foundryside by Robert Jackson Bennett, because the third book is coming out here soon, so I was going to do book 1 and 2 and then read the third book. I still don't know when or if I'm going to get to this specifically. Probably won't be before the third book's out at this point, but it's still a possibility. So now getting into just the general collection of books that I have, and so I'm just going to briefly talk about why it's in this pile, and then we'll kind of go from there. A lot of these are because I own multiple books, which is also true for An Illusion of Thieves by Kate Glass. So this is like a book where being a sorcerer basically means you'll be put to death, and this person escapes dark greening, becomes a courtesan at court, and then is hiding that she can use magic, but then magic becomes necessary. It's got a blurb from Janie Wirtz on it, which I figure is a good sign, and this first book is pretty short. I have this trilogy at this point that I got all, I think, on Book Outlet, and so this is one of the many things we're going to talk about where I have multiple books that I need to get to determine if it's for me, and if not, I get to win whole multiple books, so that's a plus. In a similar vein, I also have the trilogy that starts with Blood of an Exile by Brian Naslund. This one I famously thought was like a romance from the cover. Apparently, it's like a really cool action-packed book about a dragon slayer, and I have the first 3 books of this. I think it is a trilogy, but I have this trilogy as well. Also, I think mostly from Book Outlet, if not all from Book Outlet. So another one I need to try, see if I really like it. This one I've heard good things about because I was talked into getting it after seeing it a bunch of times at Book Outlet, never getting it because I didn't know what type of book it was. But so that one is another one there. So we also have The Game of Kings by Dorothy Dunnett. So somebody was getting rid of the first 3 books of this series, and I've been curious to try because Klaus, if you're familiar with him, the contradictorian, very famously, this is his all-time favorite series, and he hates everything. So I was just curious to see if I find it any good, or if I would bash it and make an enemy of Klaus forever. I think he's got enough nemesis, but, you know, why not add another one? Next up is Duskfall, which this should be the first one. Yeah, book 1 of the Chaos Queen Quintet. Really fun to say. I have book 1, and then I think book 4 that I got on Book Outlet. The other ones weren't on there. But I've mentioned when I got these before, and at least somebody said that it was a good series. But it just kind of sounded really interesting. It's like the tagline in the back here: "There are demons that even demons fear." And it starts with, "Pulled from a frozen sea, pierced by arrows and close to death, Not has no memory of who he was, but his dreams are dark and filled with violence and unknown faces." And it goes on from there, but it just sounds cool. And so this will be one where if I read this one and I like it, then I'll have to get like 2, 3, and 5. But if I don't, then get rid of 2 books. And then Narsil, it's in here. Don't worry if you're watching this. The Darkness That Comes Before by R. Scott Baker. I got this a while back. It's an old library copy, not in the greatest condition. But I've been hearing about this because originally I heard Slowly Red mention this, and then Narsil in our Discord, one of the mods, he absolutely loves Baker. Is always trying to convince people to read this. And so it is on my list. It's something that I meant to get to. I only have the first book. And I know these are kind of hard to collect matching editions, so it might be something I do electronically on the Kindle. But this is just one of those things I've had for a while that I really want to try and see what I think. Next, we have In the Shadow of the Gods by Rachel Dunn. And so this is The Bound Gods is the series. It does have Michael R. Fletcher blurb on it, which I figure is a good sign because I really enjoyed Fletcher's work. And so this is, I always thought it was funny with the name. This is one, I also have the trilogy. I almost didn't buy the 3rd book because the cover is really bad. But I have the trilogy of this too, and these are kind of short, like less than 400 pages, which is actually longer than it looks for this one. And so it's another one where I have the whole thing and I just need to try the first book, see if it's for me. If not, I can get rid of multiple books. And you'll hear me say that quite a lot. Speaking of Michael R. Fletcher, funnily enough, Beyond Redemption. This is actually the first book I heard about of Fletcher's, and it's what made me very interested in his writing because the premise of this sounds so cool and so interesting. And I have not read it because I ended up starting the Obsidian Path trilogy because it was really short and it was easy for me to fit in 1 month when I first started. I really, really loved that trilogy, and so I still really want to get to this. I also have Ghosts of Tomorrow somewhere, but I feel like Beyond Redemption needs to be my next one because I'm just so interested in reading this because the premise is just really, really cool. Then we have Silverthorn by Raymond E. Feist. This is the, I guess you can call it either book 2 or book 3, depending on how you categorize Magician, but in the original Rift War set of books. And I love Magician, but I have not gotten to this, even though this is really short. This is also less than 400 pages. Much, much shorter than Magician was. I have this and the Darkness at Sethlanon, and I really need to continue. I don't know why I haven't so far, because I really enjoyed the first book, but I really want to continue this, and then the Empire trilogy being up next, which I'm so excited to read, because it's author that I really liked the first trilogy from, or the first book, I suppose. I haven't finished the trilogy, Angie Annie Words. So that's a plus. I'm really excited to read that, so I'm hoping to also get to that soon. Next up is Neverwhere by Neil Gaiman. And so I got this nice copy, and I had a mass market paperback of it for a while, which is why I haven't read it yet, because I had a lot of other bigger copies, and I prefer to read those. I know this is a lot of people's favorite Gaiman, though, and so I really want to read this, because I haven't loved everything I've read by Neil Gaiman, but I have enjoyed most of it, and so this is definitely next up one I just need to try out and see what I think. Then we have, we're getting into some of the, I know people have wanted me to read these for a long time. Sunderland Ascends by Josiah Bancroft. So this one got a ton of buzz, and I know Andrew, for the most part, really enjoyed this series as well. And the premise in general sounds really interesting. It's supposed to be really, really well written, and it's a series I've been interested in since I first heard about it. I just have never gotten around to doing it. There was a buddy read I was going to join, but I didn't end up having time, so I still have not read Sunderland Ascends, but someday it's coming. Now here's the big one, which probably a lot of people, but specifically Marilyn, if you're watching, it's in here, I swear. Theft of Swords by Michael J. Sullivan. So the first bind up for the Riri Revelations. I have all 3 books in the Riri Revelations. I've not started them. I read Nolan, which I've been told is not a good place to start, but that is where I started because it was new at the time and I got approved for the E-Arc, and Michael J. Sullivan said in the intro that it was okay to read it first. So I did, but I know people have been after me to read this. I don't know how I'm going to feel about it because I've heard some mixed things. I know a lot of people love it, but it sounds like also that people like me who tend to nitpick will have problems with it sometimes. So I'm really interested to try, though. This has been one of those series I have been hearing about since I was aware BookTube was a thing, and I've just never gotten to, so it's time for me to try it out. If it's something I really end up enjoying, there's a ton of Sullivan for me to get to, and if not, I have several other of his books too that I might just get rid of if I don't end up enjoying those series, so we'll have to see. So then we have the other 2 finalists, or I guess not finalists, the other 2 books back when I did a pick a book on my TBR a while back that I still haven't read because Jade City won, and I've read that, and I also read Grace of Kings. We already talked about Foundry Side, where I was kind of planning on reading it anyway, so that the other 2 that were in there that I haven't made a specific plan, I included here as well, which are the Bone Ships, which, like ships made from dragon bones, sounds pretty cool. And then Fireborn by Rosario Munda. This is by R.J. Barker, I didn't say. Which is also supposed to be have a lot of good politics, dragons, that kind of thing. So sounds right up my alley. So those are still 2 books that I need to get to at some point. Like I said, when I put all of those in, I would have been okay with any of them because they were all books that I was interested in doing. And we do have some different types of things in here as well. So that's also part of it, just books that I want to try and do something different. So we have The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin, if I can talk. And I actually recently got a couple of other shorter sci-fi works of hers, but I feel like this is the one I'd like to read first because it's supposed to be really, really good and be a masterpiece. And I've never read any of her sci-fi. I've just read some Earthsea from the fantasy side, so that'll be one I just want to try. And then we have next up is Mystic by Jason Denzel. And it even actually says on here, founder of Dragonmount. So the guy who ran, and I think it maybe is still kind of around, but not quite the same, but Dragonmount, which was a really, really big wheel of time for him. I remember when this first came out, because he wrote it, and I always thought, I'm like, oh, it'd be interesting to try out and see what it was. And I'd never seen the book physically, and so for years I kind of didn't think about it. And the very first time I was on Book Outlet, they had both Mystic, his first book, and the sequel, Mystic Dragon. I don't think he ever wrote the further ones. I think there were supposed to be more. So I have these 2, and I've just always been curious. Reviews are not particularly good for this from what I've seen, but it's something I want to read anyway, and I'm curious to see just because I used to be super, super active on Dragon Mountain, so I always thought that was interesting. Somebody I kind of know wrote a book. Back to sci-fi, we have Lord of Light by Roger Zelazny. This is another one I grabbed because I had some of these sci-fi masterworks, and I'm interested to try some more sci-fi. And I've done some more modern stuff, but also some of the classic stuff while having some problems was really interesting. And so this is another the kind of classic sci-fi things that I just think it'd be interesting to try if I'm in the mood for something different. Next up, another thing I should have gotten to a long time ago, Bloody Rose by Nicholas Eames. So I'm one of those rare people that was kind of middling on Kings of the Wild. It had some fun parts, but it had a lot of plot holes and tonal issues. And I I didn't love it like I expected to because it sounded like a book written for me. And so the sequel, some people like more, some people like less. I don't know. I've had this book for so many years, though, now. I just need to read it and either keep it or get rid of it. I don't even own Kings of the Wild anymore. I unhauled that forever ago. So I still just want to try this at some point and see what I think of this one. What do I got next? Another sci-fi one. The Three-Body Problem by Chin Liu, which I think is right way, which is translated by Ken Liu, who wrote the Dandelion Dynasty and other things. So this one, I've actually heard that it's books 2 and 3 that are way, way better, but you kind of have to start with book 1, I think, obviously. So I picked this up on recommendation of Fit to be Read, who specifically recommended books 2 and 3. But so I have this one, just another one. I've been doing a little bit more sci-fi lately, and I feel like the variety is nice. And so that's why you're seeing so many sci-fi books in my mood reading shelf, because I don't know if I'll get to any of these, but if I'm feeling like something different, I just kind of put stuff there that I can read and just kind of grab on a whim. Then we have also some other continuing series, Tower Lord by Anthony Ryan. This is book 2 in Raven Shadow. Really, really like Bloodsong. I've heard the series kind of goes downhill from there, but I like Bloodsong a lot, and I'm interested to see where that one goes. Red Country by Joe Abercrombie. I've read all of the First Law books up to this point, and I've just never gotten around to it because I'm not the biggest fan, but Andrew swears by this book, and he had very, very similar complaints to me with the rest of them, so really curious to see if this will actually change my opinion of the series in general, like it did for Andrew, because I'll be surprised, but also he spoke so highly of it, I had to give it a shot. Then we got Knight of the Silver Circle, which is book 2 in the Dragon Slayer trilogy by Duncan M. Hamilton. I read the first one, thought it was okay, kind of, entry-level fantasy type level setup, although it did seem like it was doing some different things. These were complete cover buys. I liked the dragon covers. It's a short book, though, and I have the whole trilogy, so I really need to try book 2, determine if it's for me or not, and then make a decision so that I can either keep them or on haul. The Emperor's Blades by Brian Stavely. So I also meant to join a buddy read for this one, which is the Unheating Throne. I won the trilogy in a giveaway a while back, and I still just need to get to this. And this is another one where some people love this, some people hate this, but I'm interested to just try it and see where it goes. Going back to other things I meant to finish or continue for a long time is the Black Company. So this is the Books of the South, which is the second bind up. I read the first one, and I was pretty mixed. There were things I definitely liked about it, things I definitely didn't. I have all of the bind ups though, and so if I need to just try this, see if it's a series I'm interested in continuing, and if not, then unhaul those. So then we got some mass market paperbacks. We have Spirit Gate, which is book 1 in the Crossroads trilogy by Kate Elliott. I want to read this because it's by Kate Elliott. I really like Kate Elliott, and this is the next one. It's another epic fantasy. You can see it involves really cool bird bounce. And I've read a short story in her collection that took place in this world, which seemed really interesting. We have Heroes Die by Matthew Woodring Stover, the really, really terrible covered book. This one I'd heard about. It's supposed to be really interesting, kind of like grimdark, but also just different type of book. And I randomly came across a copy, and it had been on my get sometime list for a long time, so I grabbed it. Of course, we have Soul Music, because I have not read a Discworld book in a while, and Soul Music is up next, so a good chance I grab that at some point in the next few months. The Unremembered by Peter Aurelian. This one also has bad reviews, but I've been interested to try this author because the author sounds like they're an interesting person. And then I ended up finding a trade paperback of the second book on Book Outlet that came signed, which is even more reason to try this, so that I can try that one. And then, another long-time continuing one, The Wounded Land. This is the first book in the second Chronicles of Thomas Covenant by Stephen R. Donaldson. And I loved the first Chronicles, and I really, really need to continue. I meant to continue a long time ago and still haven't, so that's definitely on there as well. And finally, we've got 4 more nearing the end here. These are all but one, book 1s in a series that I have not started, that I own multiple books. First being The Dinosaur Lord. It's by Victor Milan. Once again, I've heard pretty much nothing but bad things about this one. I know a lot of people hated it because George R. R. Martin blurbed it and compared it to Game of Thrones, which it's not. But it's got people on dinosaurs. I have the whole trilogy at this point because I happened to come across all of the books without actively seeking them out. Really just need to try it and figure it out for good. We got For the Killing of Kings by Howard Andrew Jones. This one I think is supposed to be kind of like Sword and Sorcery. I also have this whole trilogy, and the covers are all pretty cool, especially the third book. So there's just another one that I need to try out. The Name of All Things by Jen Lyons. This is another one where I have had this series for a while. I read Rune of Kings. I have the next 2 books after this. There's only 5 books in the series, and so the 5th one I think is also out. I don't have the 5th one yet. I'll probably get it if I see it on Book Outlet, but I don't have it yet, so I've been meaning to continue this one for a while. The first book I was kind of mixed on, but I overall liked it and wanted to continue, hence why I kept buying the next entry, so I really, really need to get to this and kind of make the decision. And finally, last but not least, The Curse of Chamberlain by Lois McMaster Bujold. I had 3 other of her books, and that included the ones that start chronologically before this, but then I found this when I was book shopping with Andrew, and this is the first actual book in this series that's name escapes me right now, so I figure I'll start with this one. But I've been interested to try this author because I have a few of her books, and a couple of them are even signed, which is super awesome. So I want to try this out as well. So there you have it, a pretty comprehensive list of books that I just might read at some point. I figured I would do this because when I realized how many there are, I give people a look if you're curious what I might be reading in the next few months with any of these. Also, I am completely susceptible to convincing. If you see a book in here that you'd really like me to read, let me know, and I can try and bump it up. No promises, because I'm still doing the mood reading, but if you make a convincing argument, I'm definitely susceptible to that, so you can always try to persuade me. Anyway, though, this video was a lot longer than I thought it was going to be, so make sure to give the video a like if you enjoyed it. Check the link in the description for the Wizard They Do a Discord if you want to chat books, whether these books, other books, any books, really anything at all. It does a lot of fun, and we would love to have you. Of course, if you enjoy my content, make sure to subscribe.